98% of the world is moving towards a new financial system dominated by digital currencies, DLT, blockchain, and much, much more. CBDC is a topic that is really not that favorable to discuss. Well, guess what? They are here, they're happening, and they have been happening for a very long time. My name is Nick. Welcome to the channel. For all those that are new out there, welcome in. I appreciate all of you stopping by. As we look at central bank digital currencies, it is becoming a hot topic, and it has been heating up in a very large way. This is cbdctracker.org, where you could pretty much see all of the major changes happening around the world in terms of CBDC development, research, proof of concepts, pilots, and even launched projects. And just to give you guys a quick reference on how fast things are changing, this was 2 years ago. This is what the map looked like 2 years ago. This is what the map looks like now, just for reference. Things are moving pretty quick. And if we go back to just 2020, and again, we're talking about like roughly June of 2020 here. This is what the 2020 map looked like. So in roughly 4 years, the map went from that to this. So we do need to focus on this. We need to pay attention to it because it is going to affect the way money works. It's going to affect everything around us. Now, are we a little early on this? 100%, because this is not going to happen overnight. But things are starting to forge the path towards CBDCs, and we're going to be talking about that. Now, over here we have from the World Economic Forum, they say that 98% of central banks are preparing to launch CBDCs as finance enters the next phase. And yes, they are. We've already looked at it, right? Like 98% of the world is moving towards CBDCs. And the big thing to focus on is what's behind these CBDCs? What's the technology behind these CBDCs? Because being able to invest into that and hold those pieces of the financial system, it's going to set you on a path towards the ultimate financial freedom, right? Because what's going to happen is we're going to be holding pieces of this new financial system. And I strongly believe that we are, right? That's why I talk about a lot of the projects on this channel. I do think that things are going to change in a very rapid pace, right? Because again, when we look at how fast things have changed in just 4 years, imagine how close we are to things going fully live and also that next step. The next step right now is regulations around digital assets, digital currencies, and even DLT. And once we're past that, the last major obstacle to full on mass adoption of this technology, it's done, right? We're over it. We're past it. And that's when things really start heating up. But remember the core pieces of CBDCs, right? It's APIs, it's DLT, it's how can we connect everything? And they're already planning this. And there's a few players in the space that are involved. One of those players is Qnt, aka Qnt. And we have been talking about Qnt for so long now. I think it's well over 3 years. And I put out a post back in September, actually, of 2023, and I said, keep fading Qnt and Qnt. The puzzle pieces are falling into place. There's no coincidences in this space. In June, we saw the BIS collaborate with Qnt on Project Rosalind for API CBDC use cases. Fast forward to today, and we see huge BIS developments regarding the digital economy. And here we have from the BIS today, our general manager, Augustin Carstens, and also Ian Goldfawn, president of the Inter-American Development Bank, signed a memorandum of understanding to help countries in Latin America and the Caribbean modernize their financial systems and bring forth deeper financial inclusion. Ultimately, the objective is to contribute to the establishment of conditions for the provision of advanced economic and safe financial services to the widest possible population. The alt season time bomb is ticking, and now is the best time to go and get your free access to 30 secret crypto gems that I personally have researched completely for you so that you can save a ton of time and make a ton of money. The link down in the description below takes you guys to this page where you can claim your free access instantly right now, free of charge. It's completely free. So what are you doing? What are you waiting for? Go and click the link down in the description below as well as in the comments below to get access now. Now, if we look at the previous breakdowns from Quant, right? With LAC Chain. LAC Chain is a global alliance led by the IDB Lab, the innovation laboratory of the Inter-American Development Bank Group. Its mission is to accelerate the development of a regional DLT-based ecosystem with the potential to fully realize the many economic and social inclusion benefits that the technology can offer. And remember, this is with the IDB and the BIS. And we already know that Quant has been collaborating with the BIS for a very long time. But what is crazy, right, about all of this is, like I said previously, right, we might still be a little bit of ways away, but these initiatives, like for an example, LAC Chain with the IDB, its mission is to accelerate the development of regional DLT-based ecosystems. Focus on how fast things can change technologically once they put the foot on the gas, right? Even with AI and blockchain converging, it's revolutionizing things in such a rapid pace. Pay attention to that. Over here we have from Tokenizer though, because if you thought that Project Rosalind was big, you're not ready for Project Agora. Check this out. This is the image that Tokenizer shared with the Bank of France, with Euro systems, TIPS, HTLC, API, gateways. All of this is around TC307, SATP, which, by the way, these are things that Quant is actually a part of or even created. Like, for an example, the TC307 standardization, Quant created that. SATP, it's fully tied to Quant. And even member of LAC Chain Alliance, Bank of Mexico, again, LAC Chain, Quant is already tapped in. We have Swiss National Bank with Project Eura with the BIS, RTGS to DLT, Bank of England, Project Rosalind with BIS, used Overledger, Federal Reserve New York, Cedar and Ubin, CBDC with MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, HTLC API gateways. And then also over here, the TIPS Hashlink solution. You can see how this fully breaks down into the API gateway with market DLT. And then also, by the way, this does utilize ISO 20022 as well, if anyone was wondering out there. On the other slides here, we can see, and this is with Project Rosalind being mentioned. And we also have on the right side, we have Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, SATP standard, which is tied back to Quant, well suited for permissioned ledgers as well. And we can see HTLC model, we have central bank A network, and we also have central bank B network. And this is how everything will really kind of work. It's all connections through the central bank ledger to the ledger API layer to the core API layer. And then you have the service provider layer, which is like connections back to Amazon, MasterCard, Barclays, you name it. And also over here, we have UK Finance Regulated Liability Network, RLN, Experimentation Phase, RLN 101. Here we have the Q&A. Will there be any exploration of interoperating with other regional RLNs? You might want to look into Project Agora, recently announced by the BIS and 7 central banks. And here we have all 7 central banks in here have already connected or are leveraging Q&T related standards in their CBDC test. The FUD before was that Rosalind was just a POC. That doesn't apply to Agora though. There's a reason why there are so many central banks involved within this effort. It's not easy coordinating so many massive counterparties, and they would only do so when they felt that they were ready for the next phase. The next phase is Project Agora, a larger scaled CBDC ecosystem with multiple parties spread across the world operating together on the unified ledger approach for the Finternet, which, by the way, that is the internet of value. That's also where XRP and Ripple come into play as well. And yes, they can connect right back to Quant. The Bank of France, representing all of the Euro systems in this approach, is especially interesting. Euro systems comprises of the ECB and the national central banks of the member states whose currency is the euro. So while there are technically only 7 central banks here, it'll affect all of those under the European Central Bank. As we also know, the European Commission itself has already shown its backing of SATP and ISO TC 307. In fact, we can see the Euro system directly referencing the API Gateway Framework exactly like SATP, which you guys can see here. And then there is the category of central banks that have already experimented and used the API-based innovation: Japan, Korea, England, and even the Fed, New York. And again, you can see all that through here. We evidently seen all of these names use Quant created standards and solutions in CBDCs. And finally, the remaining 2 being the Swiss National Bank and the Bank of Mexico. While neither of those or these have directly shown their own efforts of CBDC innovations with quant-related standards like the former, there is a line of connections laid out. With the SMB, we know they've tested CBDCs with the BIS quite early on, reasonable given BIS is based in Switzerland. This also includes Six Group and their Swiss digital exchange in SDX, which does have connections right back to Quant. We've seen the connections to both the SDX platform itself, but also how it is used in interoperability scenarios with other CBDC pilots earlier on, such as Helvetia. The Bank of Mexico hasn't shown any direct relations to SATP and ISO TC307 either, though they are a member of the LAC Chain Alliance. In November of 2023, we saw LAC Net, the builders behind LAC Chain, join ISO TC307 as a Class A license. In other words, all of Latin and Caribbean DLT efforts are already compliant to ISO TC307, which is a standard created by Quant. This was all planned long ago. Project Rosalind really looks like it could be the final piece of the puzzle now. One final piece, don't forget that UK RLN, which also uses Quant directly as a core technology, will be working alongside Project Agora soon enough. This was verified by Citi's head of emerging payments, Tony McLaughlin, in a UK finance webinar. It would make sense that they use the same common standardized interoperability solution to make it happen, because we cannot have, when we talk about interoperability, it cannot be fragmented. It all has to be harmonized. Project Agora will dwarf everything we've seen out of CBDC innovations yet. Now, as we do look at this, right, let's talk about a few things happening around Ripple and Quant as well. Because when we look at Ripple, they have been planning a few things around CBDCs. Specifically, as we really look at this new financial system, CBDCs are a big focus. Recently, 801_XRP put out a great post, and it's actually a video going back to December of 2023. It's about 2 minutes and 36 seconds long, and it's from the Bretton Woods Committee. And we have listened to Rebecca Patterson, of the member of the Bretton Woods Committee on the BWC conference. We have how central banks should be thinking about non-banking sectors' alternative currencies' impact on CBDCs. We don't know what will happen, but there's certainly an increasingly amount of speculation that a cryptocurrency exchange traded instrument will be passed sometime next year, 2024. And if that were to occur, it becomes, I think, a more acceptable vehicle for more institutional investors. Right now, private cryptocurrencies are still largely traded by retail investors. And if you had larger pools of capital, more diversified pools of capital going into cryptocurrencies because they have different goals and timeframes, it could reduce the volatility of cryptocurrencies, and that could create a positive self-reinforcing cycle that makes this industry grow. If that happens and it becomes bigger and it's more connected into the traditional system, the financial system, then you have to be more cognizant of what are the risks of that interconnectivity, right? Now, there isn't that much interconnectivity, which means that even if something blows up, I shouldn't use that term, but if it is a shock within the cryptocurrency ecosystem, it's staying fairly contained. But with the advent of an ETF, I think it creates the potential for that change, and we'll just have to watch and see if ETFs get passed. Now, I'm going to play this clip in a second, but what she talked about in terms of interconnectivity in the financial system, we know that Ripple has been reinventing the wheel for quite some time around the financial system. And as we look at Ripple and when we look at Quant, how could these two work in the same environment, right? Because we know that Ripple has the CBDC system. They have their platform around CBDCs and stablecoins. Well, when we think about that, in fact, Ripple and Quant are very complementary. Quant, when we look at these three images, is a connector. It's a bridge for everything, which means even if we look at this, right, we can see on the bottom, the blockchains being there, right? Blockchains, payment systems, all of it can be tapped in through Overledger. Overledger and Quant are not a competitor to any of these big players like XLM, XRP, Hbar, you name it. In fact, when we look at Quant, I really look at this as the bridge that will forge a path for all of these DLTs, all of these blockchains to actually be utilized in real world applications, meaning within Amazon or banking applications or phones, you name it. That's where Quant comes into play. And even over here, when we look at Overledger, an enterprise operating system that interconnects blockchains, enterprise platforms, and networks, like this is all connecting anything to everything. And you have the enterprise permission blockchains. You have the public permissionless blockchains, which you do have, the big ones here. Obviously, Ripple and XRP are, well, Ripple's technically under enterprise permission blockchains, but XRP would be under public permissionless blockchains here. But they do put Ripple there under the enterprise permission blockchains because it is really kind of catering to enterprises. But XRP itself and the XRP ledger is a public permissionless blockchain. Then you also have the other blockchains on the right side. But regardless, right, like this is how everything can connect to the real world. And even over here, a little bit more of a updated view, we could see all of the connections back to Quant, to all of these big networks out there like Algorand, XDC, XLM, LCX, Ripple, and so forth. And this is how I look at it, right? Like I don't look at Quant as like, oh, Quant's killing this, Quant's killing. No, like it's very complementary. But listen closely to this video.
I just briefly add, we don't know what will happen, but there's certainly an increasing amount of speculation that a cryptocurrency exchange traded instrument will be passed sometime next year. And if that were to occur, it becomes, I think, a more acceptable vehicle for more institutional investors. Right now, private cryptocurrencies are still largely traded by retail investors. And if you had larger pools of capital, more diversified pools of capital going into cryptocurrencies, because they have different goals and timeframes, it could reduce the volatility of cryptocurrencies, and that could create a positive self-reinforcing cycle that makes this industry grow. If that happens and it becomes bigger and it's more connected into the traditional financial system, then you have to be more cognizant of what are the risks of that interconnectivity. Right now, there isn't that much interconnectivity. Which means that even if something blows up, I shouldn't use that term, but if there is a shock within the cryptocurrency ecosystem, it's staying fairly contained. But with the advent of an ETF, I think it creates the potential for that to change. And we'll just have to watch and see, A, if an ETF gets passed, and then B, what is the institutional take-up afterwards, and how does that affect the volatility and the liquidity of this market? So I think next year could potentially be really important for watching this space, and obviously how that space changes and grows is going to affect the discussions on CBDCs.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that the regulators need to have guardrails to make sure that cryptocurrencies, stablecoins are safe assets, that consumer protection, dispute resolution, all the things that we've seen that have been lacking. As long as those guardrails are in place, then I think the regulators should be, central banks should be pretty agnostic about who's going to actually win the race, whether it be a CBDC or a stable coin or some other kind of instrument. But right now, we don't have a safe regime in the cryptocurrency space, and we need to get that first before we can actually run a fair race. Is my personal opinion.
Yeah, we have to really look at the risk, and you see, we already have several incidents that it could fail easily. So that in this regard, that legal regulation is very important, and also investor awareness. Investor education is very important.
Well, thank you very much.
So there you guys have it. And again, the one thing that I really want to stress about this entire scenario, as we are watching CBDCs becoming a hot topic, we're starting to see ETFs flowing into the space. We're starting to see the traditional giants jumping in. They're all looking at tokenization. Remember that, right? The key word here is tokenization of pretty much everything. And when we are looking at that, they're going to tokenize deposits. They're going to tokenize e-money. They're going to tokenize stablecoins. Like, they're going to start creating all of these things of value that are tied back to replacing fiat currency. Now, am I pro, replacement of fiat currencies? No, but that's their plan. Like, this is the full plan. And if this is going to become a reality, which in my opinion, it is going to become a reality, everything around us is now digital. We can't have paper-based money forever. It's the same exact way that when we look at the evolution of everything around us, the old is always replaced by something new. And that's exactly what we are witnessing in real time now. And we have to really kind of pick and choose some of the winners. And in my opinion, when we look at some of these images here, we can clearly see some of the big players on these lists. Like, I do think that Ripple and XRP are a massive giant. I think that Stellar and XLM are a massive giant. DEG's a great one as well. You have XDC, you have LCX, Algorand, Hedera, Casper. There's so many great projects out there in this space, but none of them really become interconnected with the traditional world unless we have these bridges built out. And Quant is the connector. Quant is that bridge. This is going to forge a path towards mass adoption of a lot of these networks, like, for example, XRP or XLM or Hbar, Casper, you name it. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.